And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Phil.
Yeah, and I just want to take a couple of minutes here to before I turn it over to Jeremy. But it's been a heck of a year. I don't need to tell anybody who's on the screen here about that. So we're in the process, along with many other organizations, of trying to navigate whatever one calls reopening, and doing events and things like that. So we're hoping to do business after hours the next 3 months at places where they will be outdoors. So that's kind of our halfway opening kind of thing. And in Keene, we'll be opening our office again on Central Square, which has been pretty much closed for a year, although we've been in there, many of us, but closed to the public. So that'll be happening. And we're working on a similar plan for Peterborough. As most of you know, there is a building out on Route 101 where the chamber has been, when we're exploring whether or not that's the best place for a chamber to be, or whether or not we want to try to figure out some kind of a downtown location. So stay tuned on that. That's not a fully baked plan yet, but it is something we're looking at. And once that kind of settles down a little bit, then we expect to be a lot more active over in the eastern part of the Monadnock region. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Keep your eyes open for the, I can't remember, is it next month, Chris? Is it Service Credit Union, maybe?
It is Service Credit Union, and actually they do not, well, their powers that be did not want to have an in-person outdoor event. So that's going to be virtual as well.
Oh, okay, all right.
Hopefully that's the last one that's virtual.
All right, and then we have a couple of others, including one in Harrisville, I think, in August. But anyway, stay tuned on that. I will turn things over to Jeremy and be curious to see what how you guys have fared over the past year, and what your what it looks like going forward.
Great. Well, thank you, Phil and Damaris and Christine. It's great to have the invitation to talk at one of these, and hopefully we can do another one in person at some point when there's some wine and food drawing people in, and not just a Zoom page. I'm Jeremy Wilson, and I've been the director at the Harris Center since 2012. And I really made a pretty big career shift when I switched over to the Harris Center. I was teaching at the University of Maine and had been there for 13 years, and just decided to really change gears and move in a different direction. And it's been this incredible whirlwind since then of figuring out how this organization runs. And it's an organization that has a lot more going on than you think on the surface. It seems a little quiet sometimes, but there's just, as you'll see in some of the slideshow I'm going to show, it's arm's reach throughout the region, and there's lots of activities going on. I'm going to show a couple videos. The first, I'll do one before I do the PowerPoint, and the second one after. And the first one is one that was put together. Both of these were put together for our 50th anniversary celebration. So the Harris Center was founded in 1970. And the first one really focuses on the story of how the Harris Center came to be. With it's mostly features Eleanor Briggs, who was the founder of the Harris Center. The Harris Center is located in an old estate home that was her family's home, and she still lives across the street and is connected with us in many ways. And so there's this great film sort of depicting how this came to be, the Harris Center. And then I'll go through a PowerPoint, just pictures, nothing Nothing you need to read, but just pictures, and let's keep it really informal since there's so few people here. And if people have questions, it's not going to be something where you need to worry about waiting to the end. Let's just have some back and forth and discussion. And then once we get through that, I'll show another film that was done for the 50th celebration. And this one is, it's a little more sort of, here's what the Harris Center is now, here are the components of it, and a little bit about where we're hoping to go. And Lisa Murray, chime in anytime you want, because you may have things that make sense to add in. But let me start by showing this first film. And again, let's try and keep it pretty informal if anyone has questions while we're talking. But I'm going to do a screen share and share this video. Oh, and this video was done by the SALT Project, which is a great little video production company right out of Keene. So here it is.
I have always wanted people to fall in love with nature here around us. If we can help people feel connected to our support system, nature, then there is hope. My name is Eleanor Briggs. I grew up on Long Island, and every summer I'd come to my grandmother's house in Hancock, New Hampshire. I remember feeling lonely as a child, but I found great comfort, beauty, and delight in the woods around our house. When my grandmother died, her house was sold to a developer. I bought it back. I couldn't bear to see this land, all this beauty and delight turned into a development. I was determined not to let that happen here, to all this. I longed for a place that could help us connect to nature, a place where children can learn to love frogs, and where wild animals can roam, a place that makes a difference in how we live now and into the future. These ideas took hold like roots of a tree, and later, when my life as a photographer took me to distant places, I saw my vision blossom, carried by so many people who had indeed fallen in love with where we live. No matter where I travel around the world, the road always leads me back to this place that has taught so many and protected so much. The Harris Center is needed now more than ever, don't you think?
All right, so that was a sort of origin story of the Harris Center that again, SALT Productions put together for us. And I'll show another somewhat longer video at the end that shows a little bit more about where we are now and the kinds of programs that we run. But I'm going to switch now over to, but let me just ask a question quickly. Did that video show okay for everybody?
Yes.
For a long time, we've been having trouble showing videos, and this is just an aside that may be useful to some of you through Zoom. They've been very blocky, but we've been doing it sort of through the PowerPoint presentation. But there's a way, if you click on an advanced tab when you share your screen, you can share a video, and then the video is being shown through Zoom, and it just seems to work so much better. So hopefully that will be the case for the second one. But I'm going to switch over to this PowerPoint and again, just go through very informally some pictures of what's going on at the Harris Center and a little bit about plans for the future. And then we'll watch this other video and welcome to questions anytime. So. All right, well, this is that estate home that I was telling you about. The Harris Center, the building was built in 1911 for Eleanor Briggs' grandparents who were spending summers up here. And by the time the Harris Center inherited it in 1970, it was in pretty poor shape. Peter Hansel, who was an early board member, will remember what the Harris Center used to look like before its rehabilitation. And that took place in 2002, 2003, and it was a not just a sort of overall makeover of the building, but a green makeover with really high quality 3-pane windows and lots of insulation and that kind of thing. Well, the Harris Center is an organization that really believes in a Monadnock region that sustains both people and the natural world. And we do this work in a variety of ways. And probably the most important, the longest standing, has certainly been our environmental education programs. And these really serve everyone throughout our life cycles, let's put it that way. Sometimes
Peter's asking, when were the solar panels added?
The latest, there were solar panels when the building was originally redone, but it was a limited and pretty inefficient setup. And just 3 years ago, we added that new solar panel makeup, and that covers about 70% of our electric use currently. So it's been a great addition. Sometimes, and Lisa Murray gets mad at me when I say this, that we cover cradle to grave, but let's put it a different way. We cover throughout the life cycle in terms of our environmental education programs. So everything from babes in backpacks all the way up to work in programs in retirement facilities. And then for sure in preschools, our preschool programs have changed a little bit in how they look this year with the need for masking. This is a group of kids who are playing an owl game where they're hunting silently through the woods. There are mice that they're hunting that they have to find on silent wings. We've been when the pandemic really got going here and things shut down in March, our in-person programming really stopped for the rest of the school year, although we continued remotely. But this year we've been working in person and remotely and a hybrid of them all throughout the year. So it's been pretty amazing. We really haven't had that much time when we aren't out working with kids or even adults in the outside. We work in we work in 30 schools in the region, 160 classrooms. I'm not including preschool programs, which this is a picture of. And we serve about, I'm going to say over 3,000 school age kids. It's K through 12 or pre-K through 12 age kids in the Monadnock region every year. And that's everything from programs at the schoolyard to programs at the Harris Center. This is one where we're doing a bird banding demonstration, and she's got she's holding on to one of the captives. We work in all of the elementary schools in Keene and all of the elementary schools in SAU 29. We work in the Conval School District. We work in Jaffrey Ringe. This is one of our teacher naturalists who's since this photograph retired, but leading Polly Pattison, leading a bird exploration with Keene elementary students. This year, as I said, we've kept going, and in terms of in-person programming, the kids you can see are masked up. This is I can't remember where this is. I think it might be Greenfield Elementary. And John Benjamin is the teacher naturalist. He's in the background with his arm pointing, and you can see that he's got several kids in person around him, but there's also a laptop in the foreground here, and that's actually remote students following along with this lesson through Zoom from their homes or wherever they're working remotely from. So it's been an interesting year where we're finding ourselves that we're doing programs sometimes in triplicate with programs with kids in person, programs remotely, and programs in some kind of a hybrid. For the younger kids, sort of elementary and middle school, we also run things like camp programs during the vacation times in the winter and over the summer. The summer one is called Summer Adventures. People might remember it as Wool's Nest, which was its original name when it started in 1975. It was actually, it was a program we did in conjunction with Antioch University. The camp program really focuses on having high quality naturalist education as part of the programming that's going on. So the kids are spending all their time outside and learning a lot about the natural world, and also really having a lot of fun, which is a big part of our programs. To work in schools, we have to meet all kinds of standards and curricula requirements of the teachers, but we try to infuse that with elements of fun and just the joy of being outside and enjoying where we live in this part of the state, including this. This is actually Willard Pond, and these are campers that have earned a well-deserved swim after a long hike. Our school programs go through middle school, less so in the Keene district and the Jaffrey Ringe district, but very much so in the Conval district. So we work with all grades in the middle school, in the 2 middle schools in that district. This is an invertebrate program that we're doing, an invertebrate sampling program that we're doing with, in this case, it's Great Brook Middle School kids. So these are kids that go to the Antrim Middle School in the Conval district. We don't just work with classroom teachers, we also do sponsor a lot of after-school programs. And in this case, this is a picture from a very popular program called Lab Girls that one of our teacher naturalists came up with. Its focus is really on young women and trying to maintain their interest in the STEAM field. So usually people call it STEM, but we've added A because we haven't added it. Lots of people have added it. So it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. But this is an after-school program that brings in women mentors, women that are in that STEM fields, and then also has mentors from the high school that work with the middle school girls. This has all gone remote, or many of the Lab Girls programs have gone remote this year, and Susie's getting people coming in from all over the US and even some from Canada, and it's been a great success this year with expanding that beyond our traditional borders of the Monadnock region. Our education programs continue on to even doing professional development with teachers from the region. This is working with teachers from the Conval School District, helping them to understand how to run programs where they're getting their kids outside and doing things like, again, invertebrate sampling, in this case in a stream, and then working through, well, how would this program work with your kids? We do environmental education courses for adults. And so this is an ESI course that, again, John Benjamin, one of our naturalists, is offering. And this one was on mushrooms. Pre-pandemic because of no face masks, but we typically offer about 2 to 3 courses a season. So up to about 12 courses a year are offered through our Environmental Studies Institute. But we also offer, boy, I think it's up to, the last time we counted, 130 programs, events, workshops, outings that are sprinkled throughout the year. So pretty much 2 to 3 events a week that are offered for the community. And some of them are at the Harris Center. A lot of them are Zoom in this present era. It's going to be interesting to see how we adapt to opening up again. We just opened the building again to the public last week, and it will be interesting to see how we adapt to how much continuation of Zoom programming for lectures and workshops are we going to continue, because they've been incredibly successful, and we've really connected with people from a much broader region than we have before. At the same time, we all miss in-person programming. So we're going to be experimenting with finding that balance of how much of this are we going to do remotely? How much are we going to do in a hybrid level? And we'll see how it all plays out. But it's been a fascinating year in the sense of when we first shut down, we were all looking at each other like, what are we going to do this year? What's it going to look like? And this incredible staff came together and just were so creative about ideas and options. And then as I look across the fact that we continued with our school programs remotely and then not remotely when that was possible, our trails have gotten and lands have gotten more use than ever before. And our Zoom programs have been incredibly popular. And we've probably, it's just an estimate, but I'm guessing that we've tripled or quadrupled the number of people we reach in a typical year, which is, it's just astounding when you think about, you would have thought just the opposite would have happened to us. We also run outings within this environmental education thing. So these are typically volunteer-led outings, although staff lead some of the outings, and it's just explorations of incredible spots that we all can explore in this region. And the value of these outings is that there's lots of people who feel timid about doing that on their own or don't know their directions or don't feel comfortable on a trail until they've experienced it in another way. And so we really expose a lot of people to some of the real gems of this region through these outings. This is a canoe outing on Rye Bog, which is on Route 123, just on the sort of Hancock, Antrim, Stoddard border. In fact, I think Rye Bog has pieces of each of those towns within the water there. It's a fascinating body of water. It's called a raised fen. So it's kind of a fen is a high nutrient bog, if you want to think about it that way. But Rye Bog has all kinds of really fascinating bog flora that you don't find in other places. And this was just an outing to explore some of that. All right, so that's our environmental education program, or a sense for what we do. In 1980, the Harris Center took on another sort of leg of a stool. So it started as a conservation education organization, but then in 1980, it began to do some work in land conservation, and it really was associated with one of our outings that was on Spoonwood Lake. So Spoonwood is this body of water to the left, one of only a few real large bodies of water that has no development around its shoreline in the region. And then it flows into Nubanusset Lake over a dam. And the outing was coming back towards the dam and saw a for sale sign on the shore and said, well, how do we continue having outings like this if the special places we come are getting developed and we don't have that option anymore? And so the Harris Center sort of moved into a new realm, and from 1980 until now has done quite a bit of work in the land conservation world. We're what's known as a local land trust. That is to say, we work in a really limited focus area. Our focus area is parts of 8 towns centered on Hancock, but the red line you see here sort of describes that. And then within that, from 1980 on, we started with 7 acres. So that was the land surrounding the immediate Harris Center, the building itself. And we're now well over 23,000 acres that the Harris Center is directly involved in the management or monitoring of. And that's part of a larger what's called the super sanctuary that includes other conservation work as well, so that within this focus area there's a remarkably contiguous group of conserved lands that's over 34,000 acres at this point. So it's pretty remarkable story of really building on success and generating or working to generate a landscape where there's this tremendous backbone of contiguous conserved land that's right in our backyard in this region. Just to put it in a more regional context, we're looking at the southwest region of New Hampshire, and this is Keene, this gray area over here, and Peterborough's here, And obviously we're going over the Wapak Range there, but you can see that there's a tremendous amount of conserved land in this region. But if you look at who's done that conservation work, it's very little federal land. That's the brown blotches that you see there, and almost all of that federal land is associated with flood control projects. And so, for instance, the McDowell Flood Control Project in West Peterborough, well, that's federal land. But if you think about the context of traveling up north and you think about national forests and the backbone of conserved land that the federal ownership provides in regions like that, or in Vermont, this region didn't start with that at all. There was very little, and it was this incredible private effort to put together big blocks of conserved land. And it's an amazing success story that really sets the region and landscape of this region up for having these amazing amenities of large conservation blocks that both provide wildlife habitat for wide-ranging species like otter and moose and bobcat and fisher, but also really remarkable, not quite backcountry, but relatively remote wilderness experience, or not wilderness, relatively remote backcountry experience, recreation experience for humans. So it's an amazing sort of blueprint for maintaining some of the value, these natural resource values for this region long into the future. This is just looking south, looking over New Manooset Lake and Spoonwood to the right, and that's really the heart of that Harris Center conserved land. We're looking to this is Monadnock showing up here to the left in the screen, and there's just an enormous block of conserved land. Not all of it. I mean, there's houses within that, but there's a tremendous contiguous conserved land throughout that region, so that when we do a new conservation project now, it often is connecting to 2,000 acres of conserved land that it's contiguous with, or maybe it's even up to 10,000, or in some cases 20,000. So it's really cool. We're sort of continuing to fill in those pieces to create that backbone of conserved land. We do a lot of work trying to think about the watershed of some of our incredibly valuable water bodies in this region. So we've done a tremendous amount of work conserving the watershed around Silver Lake, one of the four really deep, clear lakes in this region. I think it's 80% of the watershed of Silver Lake has been conserved by the Harris Center and other partners. It's an amazing success story. And then there's work that gets done with local towns. This is Osgood and Herd Hill, and it's in the town of Nelson. It's the second highest hill in Cheshire County, Monadnock being the first, because Monadnock's actually located in Jaffrey. Anyway, this is the second highest peak in Cheshire County, and this was a project that we worked on with the town of Nelson, and it's become it's become what's known as Partridge Woods, and it's a remarkable resource for the town in terms of hiking trails that are available, and it's this great public or town private organization partnership that led to it. As you focus in on our conserved lands, you get smaller and smaller pieces of these little gems. This is looking out over Merrill Marsh in Hancock, just on the northern border of Harrisville, and you get these incredibly beautiful areas that are just special places to visit. This is from one of our campsites that we run on Spoonwood Pond. Again, Spoonwood Pond is that pond that has no development on its shoreline. But it's just amazing opportunities that exist right in our backyard. I think, canoeing on Spoonwood, you often feel like you're in northern Maine, just from the perspective of, wow, this this is really free from development on the shoreline, and it's something very different from what you expect to see in the region. And it, you know, it scales down to just individual beautiful trees, like these two trees that are on near the foundation of an old house that's on part of a piece of land that we've conserved. So it's this tremendous scale, from the large landscapes that we're working on down to just little special places that exist. One of our big focus areas lately has been working on developing more hiking trails, especially hiking trails that are easy to use, that are gentle slopes and relatively easy walking conditions, because we're looking at our demographics and seeing that there's a lot of older people that really have trouble with some of our single track trails that are steep and curvy and rocky. So one of the places we've looked for this is an old railroad bed that goes right through the area that we work in. And this was the Keene Manchester Railroad bed. So this was a line that went from Keene through Harrisville and Hancock, across this line here in Hancock at Elmwood Junction, and then it actually went on to Nashua. But it was called the Keene Manchester Railroad, and it was built in 1875. I think it was completed in 1878, and it ran for about 50 years, serving these communities. And then reduction in traffic on the line, and then also the 1936 flood. So not the 1938 hurricane, but the 1936 flood wiped out a major embankment associated with the railroad in Hancock, and they never rebuilt it. And so this whole line was abandoned, and we've been working with lots of town partners to slowly piece together the pieces of this to generate segments of trail that can be used for hiking trails. And we've had some real success. You can now walk from Hancock to Harrisville along this trail. We don't control all parts of it, but it's open for hiking along that whole route, and even a little bit beyond that. So that's over 5.5 miles of railroad bed. And it's a pretty remarkable line in that I think I think it was a 1890 Boston Globe, there's an article talking about just how scenic this route was, and it compares it to you don't find more scenic railroad route south of the White Mountains was what the article says. And it really is remarkable when you walk along it, just in terms of the kinds of terrain you're walking through, these incredible embankments that were built up. You know, sometimes you're at treetop because that's how high the embankment was above the regular ground surface. And they're just really fun things to explore. There's also a lot of water flowing through this region, and so there were a lot of bridges, and most of those are gone. And so a big project we did a few years ago with Harrisville Trails was to replace a missing railroad bridge across these two abutments, which are 50 feet above the stream bed there. And so this was an old car bridge that we refurbished, or had refurbished, and it was donated to this effort, and it came from Roxbury, New Hampshire, actually. And it got refurbished, and then we had an enormous crane in here, and we reinstalled this bridge to make it possible to walk along this segment of the rail trail. This is now called the Jakewith trail segment. This is Jakewith Brook we're looking at here, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful spot. If you go there in late August, I don't know if any of you know about cardinal flowers, but they're this brilliant red flower that often grows on the banks of streams and wetlands. And this whole segment here is just covered in those. And so you walk along and look down, and there's this incredible bed of brilliant red flowers everywhere. It's an amazing place. All right, and in 2014, the Harris Center added another leg to the stool, a third leg, which was really thinking about all this land that we were involved with and all these education programs, but there were some other things that were happening as well. And one of the things was that the Harris Center took over an organization called the Ashuelot Valley Environmental Observatory, which was a great little organization that just got caught up in the 2008 downturn, and it made sense for them to join forces with an organization like the Harris Center. And that sort of began this effort and this recognition that, wow, there's a lot of conservation research potential associated with this organization. And so this segment of the organization does everything from, in this case, they're planting native vegetation next to an old stream restoration project where a failing culvert that didn't allow fish passage, but also was prone to flooding, especially with the extreme weather events that we're seeing. This is planting native species along the sides of that. And the Harris Center was involved in this project in terms of volunteers for the Ashuelot Environmental Observatory actually figured out that this was a prime culvert to be replaced, both from the flooding perspective, but also from the fish passage perspective. One of our most popular projects in this area is our Salamander crossing brigades. We just finished up, I think Brett thinks it's our biggest year ever in terms of volunteers for sure. We know that there were 450 volunteers involved in this year's program, which is just amazing. Although it does represent a bigger geographic area because we're doing quite a bit of training across the state and beyond the state borders in terms of how do you run one of these brigades now. But 450 people involved in these crossing brigades. And what happens in the spring is that amphibians and salamanders go through a migration where they head to, from their upland homes and forests, they head to vernal pools and other wetlands to breed. And in vernal pools in particular are pools of water that form with the snow melt and don't go away until early summer typically, although they do tend to go away. And that's one of the definitions of vernal pools, because it means that there's no fish hunting pressure on the eggs that get laid in these things. Well, what happens is that the upland habitat gets divided from the vernal pools and wetlands by human development, in particular roads. And so you get rainy nights in the late spring, just after snow melt, where the temperature rises to about 40 degrees and above. And all of a sudden you get these incredible mass migration events with hundreds and thousands of amphibians and salamanders crossing roads. And you can imagine what happens when cars are traveling along those roads at the same time. So our volunteers are out there working to get these across safely for themselves, and minimizing mortality associated with the cars that are passing. These are spotted salamanders, probably probably a creature many of you haven't seen unless you've been on one of these brigades. They're not uncommon in this region, but they are extraordinary in their secretive ways, in the sense of they really only come out from underground in the forest to go to their breeding pools and then to return back to them. These pictures of them are pictures because their spot patterns are like a fingerprint. Each spotted salamander has a different pattern of where those spots are on their bodies. And so we photograph them. Every spotted salamander that gets crossed gets photographed. And this is in this case, this is a spotted salamander that we've helped across the road since in 2014, 15, 16, and 17. And I think even in 2018, this salamander was crossed. One of the real values to crossing these is that they're incredibly long-lived for what they are. So spotted salamanders can live up to 21 years or more. They really don't know how long they can live, although they know that it's at least that long. So that when one is killed crossing a road, getting to a vernal pool or a breeding pool, it's a real loss to the population. Anyway, so a fascinating project, and there's so much more that I could say about spotted salamanders, but that's for another talk. The Conservation Research Program also works on identifying where vernal pools are, where these amphibian breeding pools are on landscape, because they go away at different times of the year. Oftentimes things happen to them because someone didn't know they were around, and they're this valuable habitat to avoid when you're doing forest harvesting, for example, or avoid if you're putting in a volleyball court or something like that. These are spotted salamander eggs, and you'll find in vernal pools at this time of year, if it's an active vernal pool, they'll just be loaded with egg masses like this. Really extraordinary places. We do a whole variety of other amphibian programs. This one is called a research project called SparkNet, where we're collaborating or serving as a field station for a program that goes from the Mississippi River all the way to Maine. And I think we are indirectly and directly involved in 4 or 5 of their plot arrays that are located throughout the region. And they study another species of amphibian called redback salamanders. And those cover boards are turned over several times a year to do a count to see what their populations are looking like. And this is a long-term research project, and it's really evaluating how is this population changing over time in a wide region. We're in our 5th or 6th year of more than that, 8th year of a Keene State College internship program, where we work with 4 Keene State College interns every spring. In this case, it's a little later. It's going to be spring and early summer. And it's just this remarkable opportunity for us to get a lot of work done in terms of data collection in lands we manage, but it's also a remarkable professional development opportunity for these students to really just see a whole array of stuff going on in a conservation organization. And this is a project we were doing several years ago with them, where we're taking tree cores around Norway Pond, which is a pond in Hancock, to come up with the story of what's the forest development pattern surrounding this body of water in Hancock. This is another project that's going on in Norway Pond. It's sampling for Cyanobacteria. Many of our water bodies are starting, as the climate warms, starting to experience Cyanobacteria outbreaks. Norway Ponds had several in the last few years. Dublin Lakes had a couple. Even New Banusset Lake had one last fall. And these events are both startling to see, because you get this mat of algae that is almost luminescent green, but it's also it's dangerous for humans in terms of some of these cyanobacteria produce chemicals that are poisonous, and it's less so to humans, but more so to our dogs, in terms of dogs swimming in an area that has a cyanobacteria outbreak. Can be very dangerous. And this project is trying to figure out ways can we come up with ways to evaluate what's going on with those bacteria before the event happens, so that we can warn people about an upcoming event. We're also involved in the Monadnock Raptor Observatory. This is in partnership with New Hampshire Audubon. This is an amazing project which has been active for 15 years. So there's 15 years of data following raptor migration in the fall. So it's observing how many raptors and of which species are passing through on their way south, and in some cases many way to the south, like Bolivia or Uruguay. So it's a remarkable sort of natural event that passes above our piece of the world, and it's a way for us to sort of make that connection to this migratory thing these birds are traveling all the way down the Appalachians, across to Texas, down through Mexico, down through Central America, and then making their way into South America to further wintering grounds. And it's not necessarily a small number of birds. And so there are special days in typically September where, in particular, broad-winged hawks a forest-dwelling hawk that's common in this region and further north. They form these just enormous kettles of birds that are taking advantage of convective air currents. So if you think of a partly cloudy day where there are spots that the sun is hitting the earth in the fall, and you get a warm updraft, the hawks are taking advantage of that, just like a glider would or a hang glider might, and circling around to gain altitude. And then they use that altitude boost to glide on their way south. And so it's a way for these relatively large birds to make this many thousand-mile trip using as little energy as possible, because they're taking advantage of these convective winds. And it's really a sight to behold. And so we've got a whole program where we do education programs out there, but we also have biologists counting these birds making their way through this migration every fall. We just recently, through some funds that were made available through our 50th anniversary celebration, we've put up something called a MODIS tower, which is also looking at in some cases bird migration, but this is a technology that the transmitters are so small on the individuals that you can put these transmitters on even butterflies and dragonflies. And so this is part of a network that's going to string across, it's the first tower in the network that's going to string across southern New Hampshire and really inform all sorts of migratory studies that are ongoing. All right, I think that's probably more than you wanted to hear. So with that, I'm going to stop.
Jeremy, there is a quick question. Do we work with New Hampshire Fish and Game? We do sometimes, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. There's all kinds of complicated things going on in terms of lands we own, lands that, but yes, we work with them both on programs. They do lots of programs. We sponsor lots of speakers coming out of Fish and Game, and we work heavily with them. Okay, well, I think I'll show this other video quickly, and then we'll get to the raffle, and everyone can enjoy the rest of their evening. So let me show this other video. This one was made by Heartwood Media. It's another local film group. And again, both of these videos were made for the celebration of our 50th, and both were donated to us. So just extraordinary gifts from these organizations to the Harris Center. So here's the second video.
To me, the Harris Center is a crown jewel of Hancock. We use it for hiking. There's trails, there's programs on the environment. My children have learned about vernal pools. They've learned about animal tracks in the snow.
Is this where you saw the dragonfly?
The frog pond was like my favorite thing growing up. It's so fun to go, and now my kids go and they love to play at it. The Harris Center definitely gave me a foundation to really respect nature and value it.
You want to go down this trail?
The Harris Center has a heart in this community that's different than any other place, I think, because it's been here for 50 years, helping people connect to this place that we call home, the Monadnock region, nature and the outdoors.
I feel at peace when I'm here. The land is so beautiful. It is comforting to me that places like the Harris Center are doing things that are protecting this area.
We've had such an impact in those 50 years, protecting 23,000 acres of land, having tens of thousands of kids come through our programs.
We do education programs in local schools. I think we're working in about 30 local schools at this point. But then we do all kinds of community education programs for learners of all ages, from babies in backpacks all the way to senior housing programs.
Today, we have 2 broad-winged hawks that are going to come out shortly. They have been rehabilitated.
Some of the events, programs I have been to, I still think about today. I've been here and I've hiked on many of their trails. You've got Thumb Mountain, you've got Scatutucky, you've got Cobb Hill. It's given me a better understanding of land conservation and preservation.
We also do conservation research, and we do that with citizen scientists, but we also do it by facilitating research going on Harris Center properties.
We're doing our share to preserve the land, the environment, keeping it clean.
You can't teach somebody to care. It's kind of like they have to have the experience. And once they have that experience, we really protect and care about the things that we fall in love with.
The fact that the Harris Center's been doing this for 50 years means that we've been touching generations.
Yeah, it's great to see different generations coming and going from the Harris Center. So many fond memories, and it's just been a wonderful asset to the town of Hancock and the Monadnock region.
Thank you to the Harris Center for making our piece of the earth so much more special and intact.
We're very lucky to have the Harris Center here. It's enhanced all our lives, our children's lives, and it will enhance generations to come.
Okay, well, we've used up most of our time. And so I guess we could take a quick question. I don't know, how long does the raffle take, Daenerys?
Oh, it'll just take 30 seconds.
Okay, so if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer for a couple.
That's fantastic, Jeremy. I thought I knew something about the Harris Center, but I always learn a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know. Two things that struck me. One was I forgot to mention that one of our key programs as a chamber is leadership in Monadnock, and the Harris Center has been very gracious in hosting one of the sessions that we do, of the 9 sessions we do. And it's the first one after the orientation session, and it focuses on nature and the natural environment of the Monadnock region. And that's not an accident that it's the first stop on people's kind of tour of understanding the region. So I want to thank you again for doing that. And it's really quite remarkable, the reaction we get from people, from participants, from your presentations and your staff, and Ryan Owens and others who are doing similar kinds of work. So that's it's a really critical part of our brand, if you will, and we recognize that and want to be in our efforts to promote the region. We want to make sure that that's an integral part of the story. The other thing that struck me, I was fascinated by that slide that has all the little blotches of different colors of land, and whether it was state land or private, or all those kinds of things. How if you look, I know you said it was 37,000 acres. I forget what it was, something like that. And I know the Monadnock Conservancy has some other land that they've shepherded through to conservancy. And what's the total percentage of land in the region, roughly speaking, that is conserved, and how does that compare with, I don't know, any other place, really? I don't have a way to, I can see it with my eyes, but I don't have a way otherwise to understand it.
The 34,000 was the number.
34, yeah, that's
that was within our focus area boundary. So that red line in the previous map. That focus area is about 80,000 acres, and so you're roughly talking
40% or something.
A little over a third of the overall. But that's a area with lots and lots of conserved land.
Yeah.
The towns around here vary from very little land under conservation to quite a bit. Stoddard is the champion with 75% of its land base conserved. Interestingly, Stoddard got the lowest taxes in the region and has a growing elementary school population. So it's not as though growth and conservation can't go hand in hand. I think they really can. But there's a huge variation in the amount of conserved land throughout the region. It's not, it's inconsistent. Hancock is about 40%, and that's a high number, obviously not compared to Stoddard, but that's a really high number for the region.
Right. Peter had his hand up, I think, maybe, or was he just waving randomly? Or maybe he's frozen.
You might be frozen.
He looks frozen.
I have a question. You talked about the campsite at Spoonwood. How do you camp there?
That's a
Just
secret.
make a reservation, or is that?
No, for our supporters, one of the, if you support us at a certain level, then you're entitled to two-night visits to Spoonwood, and there's a whole reservation process for that.
Okay. Good to know.
Very, very popular. Weekends in July are almost impossible. Let's put it that.
Cool. Oh, there's Peter. He's back. He was. Were you waving because you had a question, Peter, or something?
Well, yeah, my connection has been unstable, so I've been dropped out a couple times. I just want to make a comment that I've always been impressed with the quality of the people that work at the Harris Center. I just completed a call class with instructors Kim Snyder and Stephen Lamond, and of course Brett Thalen and Eric Masters, and the list goes on. Janet Altobello, and we take for granted sometimes the quality of people that are brought to our region for things like the Harris Center. And Phil, that goes along with what you were saying about the promoting the region. You know, we're attracting people to work here as much as to visit here. So that's important.
Yeah, I'll just add that Hancock is becoming, I've just been amazed at the number of really sort of world-class birders that have moved to Hancock in the last 10 years. And it's a strange claim to fame, but it's a remarkable population. And these are some of them are pretty young people. And it's just, I think that there's an amazing pull to having the kind of resources we have here, but also having the people that have started to settle here, and it just pulls more people in that realm.
I think Samantha has a question.
Yeah, hi. I'm not really familiar with everybody, but my name's Samantha. I am the director from the Cheshire Career Center at Keene High School. And we have a horticulture program, and this is kind of, actually have two things. One just kind of came up suddenly. My daughter came home with a certificate of completion today with one of your programs. So I started at the Cheshire Career Center this past year and recently moved to Peterborough. So I'm a resident of Peterborough. And I just want to make a comment that I'm very impressed. My daughter has come home. She knows everything about birds. Having a certificate of completion, enjoying birds in spring, and making this bird guide was very impressive. And she even got to display her bird art down at the Arts Festival downtown Peterborough. And she was really proud of that. And also, as I work with, students trying to find a career pathway, while she was learning about this, she kept telling me, she's like, Mom, I need a job. I'm like, you need a job? I said, you're 8. And she says, I just want to work with animals. And it really opened her up to loving animals. I mean, we have dogs. She likes dogs. She kept bugging me about finding her a job to work with animals. So now we volunteer at in Jaffrey for kitty rescue, and we go there every week. So so kudos, great program. You got her wrapped. She's loving animals, and just the knowledge she's come home with is just amazing. So thank you for that as a parent.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. Great.
Now, at work, I try to have our high school students find career pathways for them. And like I said, we have a horticulture program with greenhouses, and we are looking to kind of expand it to more natural resources. So if there's anything you think how your programs might benefit our high school students to learn more, give them some type of certifications. We do work-based learning and extended learning opportunities. I think it would be a great opportunity for them.
That's great. I mean, we're in the midst of a strategic planning effort, and one of the things that's coming out of that is really trying to enhance our programs for teens. Our senses and our that they've really suffered in this pandemic, and not just because of that, but in part because of that, to really try and reach more of the teens in the region. It's a hard group. Susie Spickle, one of our great naturalists, often relates a story where she had an old student greet her in I think it was the Greengrocer in Peterborough, and this young woman gave her a hug, and she said, "Your field trips were the best things I ever did in school." And Susie's looking at her and thinking, this girl was the biggest pain in my you-know-what during those field trips. She had no interest in what we were doing, and yet her memory of it is something completely different. And so it's not a age group that you get immediate gratitude from when you work with them, but it's so important to continue working there. So yeah, I think I'd love to connect you with a couple of our teacher naturalists just to talk about what potential there would be there. So do you want to send me your email or something like that?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Great, that would be fantastic.
Okay, well, we're coming to the end of the hour, and I appreciate your hosting us, Jeremy, and I look forward to talking to you about hopefully hosting the Leadership Monadnock group again in the fall. That program was kind of on hiatus a little bit because of the pandemic, but it's starting up again in full blast this fall. So we appreciate you hosting us and everything we've learned. And Damaris is going to now do her magic raffle drawing. She drew my name one week and didn't allow me to win.
Sorry, Phil. So I think, Jeremy, you're raffling off a hat, is that right? And also an almanac?
Yeah, we have a 50th anniversary hat, a nice baseball cap, and then also we have a perpetual almanac. So it's a calendar that doesn't have days of the week, so it works year after year, and basically it just talks about the natural events you'll probably be observing in this region for that day. So it's this amazing reminder. I read mine every morning and learn something new all the time. So.
That's awesome. So I have a jar here with numbers, and basically whatever number you are on my Zoom screen, that's who is going to win. So I'll do the hat first. Okay, so we have number 6. So Eliza from NBT Bank. I don't know if you're on or not, but I do have everyone's contact information, so I'll follow up.
We know how to find Eliza.
So Eliza has the hat. We'll do the almanac next here. Lisa Murray. Oh, well, I don't know if you can. All right. Well,
Yeah, you could throw it back in because I already have an almanac too.
Okay, let's see. Samantha Belcourt. Looks like you got the almanac. So we have your contact information. So we'll just work out if you want to pick it up or have it mailed or something.
Great, thank you.
About that.
I can deliver in Peterborough. Samantha and I have been trying to have a meeting for like a year.
Yeah.
So maybe this will be the key to doing that.
That'll be perfect. You should come to high school.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's still it's the time of year where it's light out pretty late, or getting later and later for another few weeks. And so you got a chance still to get outside a little bit, and appreciate it. Stay tuned to the e-blast and other ways that we let people know about the next one. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. And we just had a brand new newsletter come out. And, you know, I'll brag on Chris and Damaris here a little bit. we have a pretty good newsletter. So you can find it, I think, on our website. Is that the best way to do it, Chris, or is it on there yet? It just came out, so.
So it is on our website and was a little bit harder to find, but on the homepage, you scroll down, there's a quick link box, and it's right there on a quick link. So you don't even have to search for it up in the top, in a drop down. Just stay on the homepage, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see May, June Outlook newsletter. Link there.
It's a pretty good way. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, I want to say, Jeremy, we might be hitting you up for some photos that you were showing on your slideshow, because another thing we're working on is a guide to the region. So I don't know if you have rights to any of those photos. Maybe we'll just get the names of the photographers, but we're looking for really good photos.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Bye.